Harriett, Baldwin, Shadow Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm delighted to be responding on behalf of the Conservatives this evening, who have always championed British businesses. We believe very much in the ingenuity of our entrepreneurs, the skill of our engineers, and the global reputation of our exporters. And the legislation today amends legislation dating from 1983 and 1991. And we believe that time and time again, our companies have shown that with the right conditions, they can compete and win on the world stage. So updating these pieces of legislation ensures that the government has the tools to support our industries and exporters, and we should take pride in the extraordinary success of British exporters. The latest UK Export Finance annual report shows the scale of their achievements, whether it's Rolls-Royce and Airbus, who've together secured guarantees worth $165 million for supplying Ethiopian Airlines, $102 million for Avalon in Ireland, and $66 million for Emirates in Dubai. These give a flavour to the House of the kind of deals that can be supported through this finance. And defence exports, of course, remain significant too, with BAE Systems, MBDA, receiving over $120 million per major contract, including support for the very important air defence systems in Poland. These figures, I think, demonstrate the global demand for British engineering, for our aerospace and for our defence expertise. But as the Minister pointed out in his opening remarks, beyond those headline numbers, it's also 80% of firms supported by UK Export Finance, which are small and medium-sized businesses, and they often supply into these more global contracts. And their innovation, their resilience, they are the backbone of our export economy, and they also deserve support and visibility. The UK has a leading export and finance sector, and it can usually cover the commercial risks involved in exports. And so UK export finance should really only be deployed when there isn't a private sector solution available. Generally, we're in favour overall of reducing subsidy rather than increasing them. So we don't necessarily support additional taxpayer funding for industrial strategy until the government gets the fundamentals right: energy prices, tax and regulation. Because without tackling those basics, no amount of subsidy will ever deliver the competitiveness that our businesses need. So I've got a few questions for the Minister. Can he assure the House that UK export finance will continue only to be deployed where there is no private sector funding that can be secured? And if this bill is to meet its aims, export assistance must be spread across the region. We saw in Santander's recent autumn trade barometer that 3/4 of businesses who want targeted export support are actually beyond our capital. Optimism is high in sectors such as technology and media, but firms in Scotland and those in energy, construction and engineering are much more cautious. So I think there are regional disparities in the economic outlook which the government must address. So UK Export Finance, which is there to guarantee exports when the private sector can't, you'd expect it to focus on countries where the credit risks are higher. So again, a question for the Minister: what new markets will this funding likely be used for? Will some of the additional capacity be reserved for small and medium-sized businesses? And can he reassure the House that none of this finance would ever be used to support export to countries that could potentially allow the goods to get around sanctions to Russia? And it's not being used to export to any country that would wish us harm. Can he also reassure the House that as the Foreign Office undergoes a restructure, our fine network of embassies and high commissions will be made able and aware to make the most of this export finance opportunity and have the right teams in place to support UK PLC? So those are my opening questions for the Minister. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
To wind up with Leave of the House, Shadow Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And with the leave of the House, I would like to pick up on some of the points made in today's very, very interesting debate. And again, to reiterate that as Conservatives, we've always stood shoulder to shoulder with Britain's businesses and their great exporters. And in my opening remarks, Madam Deputy Speaker, I put out some questions for the Minister, which I look forward to hearing his replies. But I just want to pick up on some of the points that were raised in debate and thank the members for Chelsea and Fulham and the member for Leighton and Wanstead for all of the work that they're doing in terms of being trade envoys to the west of Africa and the south of Africa. And I remember when I was Africa Minister thinking how enormous the potential is for us to do more business with these nations. And so it's very interesting to hear how that work is going forward. I think a number of members in the debate highlighted the excellent export work done by small and medium-sized businesses, and we heard about some of the excellent examples from the Northeast in particular. And we also heard a case made from the member for Maidenhead for the importance of small and medium-sized businesses. And I reiterate my question to the Minister just to make sure that he is aware how important this House feels it is that this money doesn't just get swallowed up by some of the larger household names like Rolls-Royce, Airbus and BAE Systems, but it gives that fighting chance to some of the smaller exporters. I do want to pick up, though, on the point that the member for Maidenhead made about the customs union, because the House will recognise how much work was put in terms of landmark trade agreements with 70 countries that give UK exporters preferential access to markets worth trillions of pounds. It's work that the Minister continues energetically around the world, and he will no doubt in his closing remarks point to the India Free Trade Deal and the US Free Trade Deal, which are really important pieces of work that he has been involved in. Those free trade agreements that the UK has managed to negotiate would not be possible if we were in the European Union customs union. And so I would challenge the member for Maidenhead to point to where this research is on this fabled £25 billion. But in my concluding remarks, I just want to reiterate, Madam Deputy Speaker, that the words of Ronald Reagan keep popping into my head during debates in this Parliament. And he famously said, if it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. And if it stops moving, subsidise it. So really what I'm hoping to hear from the Minister at the dispatch box is how he's going to ensure that this additional money is used in the way that I said in my opening remarks, where it crowds in private sector investment and it is there as a last resort when to get a deal over the line, rather than crowding out private sector funding that would have been there were it not for the government funds. And without more ado, Madam Deputy Speaker, having got my favourite Reagan quote about this government on the record, I can assure the House that we will not be opposing today's business.